it is going to be the return of the UFC legend himself, Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez. Jim Miller, A10 is his nickname. He is 36 and 17, 4 and 1 in his last five. He's coming off that KO victory against Jesse Butler. Very fun win that we witnessed. He's 40 years old, so he's one of the older fighters on the roster, and especially at lightweight. He's fighting against Gabriel Benitez, 23 and 10. He is 2 and 3 in his last five, coming off that KO victory against Charlie Ontiveros. I believe that's how you say the name, but I remember that guy. That guy's not that great. um, Gabriel is 35 himself, so he's no spring chicken. I mean, both these guys are kind of vets in the MMA space and in the UFC space in particular. They actually both have the same measurables at 5'8" and 71-inch reach. So interesting little tidbit there. Jim Miller is right now a minus 119 favorite, opened up at a plus 120. So some people were instantly taking some dog action on UFC legend Jim Miller, and now he's a slight favorite. So it's kind of like a pick 'em fight, in my opinion. Right now, I mean, I'll kick it off to you, Gerard. I'm really intrigued to hear what you have to say about this. What do you think about Jim Miller and Gabriel Benitez here?
For this fight, they both feel kind of old to me, right? But Jim Miller has been the more active older guy, and in these past few fights of his, it seems like he's been able to hold up his skill set, and his power has been able to show through in these fights. And I think he's still pretty dangerous even at 40. Um, as far as Gabriel, just looking at his his record and his past few fights and how it seems very inactive to me, it almost feels like Gabriel's actually the older guy here. Um, so this long layoff, I think this might be a bad um, thing for Gabriel here, facing Jim Miller, who's been more active. Gabriel does have those leg kicks. He has nice leg kicks, and he could use that against Jim Miller. But I do think that Jim Miller's power and his his dangerousness in this fight will be able to keep Gabriel off in this fight, in terms of Gabriel trying to force things and getting too overly aggressive. But then again, he might just go for it because I don't know if he'll be able to fight for longer rounds at his age. I think Gabriel tries to finish fights usually here. So, and because of that, I think that'll open him up for a Jim Miller knockout, is what I'm seeing here. But I'm at a low to medium confidence on Jim Miller, and that's my pick for this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely. I know that Jim Miller is a UFC veteran. He's been fighting since 2008 in the UFC, and he fought at UFC 100, fought at UFC 200, trying to fight at UFC 300. So this guy's just been fighting for a very long time in that division, especially. I think over the years, Jim has shown fantastic longevity, improvement in MMA, especially at the UFC level. He started off mainly as a jiu-jitsu fighter who preferred to fight in grappling situations. In present day, in 2024, he has actually become better with age and defied the odds. His striking is more powerful now than what he had in the past. He just has a really good old man strength to him. Fights well in the pocket, actually. Has good leg kicks with pop and speed. Just watch his fight with Dustin Poirier. He really destroyed DP's legs there. He has good grappling as well. I mean, his background's in jiu-jitsu. He's shown to have those skills in the cage. 11 subs in the UFC, so nearly half of his wins in the UFC have come by sub. I think that Jim's one weak point at this point, and it's nothing against him. I mean, I think his cardio and gas tank are a little lessened with the age, right? His last decision win was in 2016, and his only wins since then have come via finish. So he's 8-11 UFC decisions. I mean, I don't, and obviously this does not get better with age. I think the cardio and gas tank are things that go once you age. So he's been mainly just finishing people for the wins, right? I think Gabriel is also a solid all round skill set in striking and grappling. Lately, he's been more so of a striker, able to move well, quick kicks, likes to hunt for KOs and finishes himself. Like I mentioned, he has a decent jiu-jitsu kind of skill set, but he also has a tendency to be taken down as well. I think Gabriel is a bit of a glass cannon, like a la Phil Hawes. Three of his last four losses were KO losses. I see this fight playing out in this regard. I think that Jim and Gabriel will get into a firefight, especially, I mean, I feel like Gabriel's been, like you said, really inactive. His last fight was like a year and a half ago. So I just feel like both of these
Mm.
guys are just going to come out swinging and banging. Jim and Gabriel, they're going to bring that out in each other. So there's going to be a firefight. Jim's going to come out on top, I think, just because he has better durability and chin at this point. However, if Jim does not finish Gabriel within 2 rounds, I think Gabriel, just being the younger guy, having a better gas tank, I think that he could take over and win via decision like Alex Hernandez did. Maybe not as convincingly as Hernandez did, because Hernandez is kind of in the prime of his career in terms of just his physicality. But I think that it could be close enough where I'm probably going to stay away from this fight. I pick here is Jim Miller inside the distance, but I'm probably staying away from this just because I just don't like being in the habit of backing a, you know, 40-year-old Jim Miller at this point. I mean, I'm rooting for him. I think that he'll get it done, but not a place where I would necessarily put my units, if you know what I mean.